Greetings, this is chapter 2 of video 4. Let's launch. Okay, so for the learning objectives for this video, we're going to describe taxpayer professional responsibilities and tax advice. And then we're going to identify tax and tax professional penalties. Prior to, I've been shooting these videos out of order, but this video, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be a little strict about this. I mean, I know I've been kind of, I try to make the class fun. I try to make it interesting by, having a lot of conversations about, various things. And I try to make it light. In this class, I'm going to actually be a little serious, and actually not a little serious, a lot serious. This is the stuff, and I talked to you guys about how audit work is something that brings a lot of value to our clients, and that tax research is where you can make money for yourself. And when I say money, I'm not talking like actual money, do-re-mi, emphasis on me. I'm focusing more towards, I'm talking about success for yourself. Okay. This is the part where I get to talk about what happens when things go bad. And usually when things go bad, it's because you go bad. Okay. And I'm saying you in general, not to anyone in particular, but generally if you follow the rules and if you have high integrity, you're not going to have to worry about any of this. Now, I will agree with you that you need to understand the rules. And so these are sort of some of the rules that bring in for the tax professionals. There are, certain things like the AICPA Professional Code of Conduct. You join the AICPA, you will sign a statement that basically says, yes, I agree with this. I agree to comply with the Code of Conduct. And then there's the AICPA statements on standards for tax services. These are also some standards that you need to read and be familiar with. I'm not going to go too much into it because, you can read that stuff on your own. And by the way, if you're not a member of the AICPA and the VSCPA, my recommendation is to join. Student memberships for AICPA are dirt cheap. And if I'm correct, and I may be wrong on this, I think the VSCPA actually does free or dirt cheap while you're a student. Look, and don't cry to me because your fees are real high for like $20 a year or something like that. When I think I pay somewhere around $300 to $400 for mine. So, again, you want to say this, cry me a bloomin' river. I'm not going to feel bad for you and all that sort of stuff. So, you want to make sure that you are reading these, that you're following them. The VSC, again, the big one up there though, the big one up there is the IRS Circular 230. And if you take a look, and I've actually talked about this in other classes, this is the quick finder that we have. Tab 18 on this quick finder will actually it has a full copy of the Circular 230. Or you can go Google it. My recommendation is use one of these books because, I think it's something that if you read, and periodically I'll actually just read it. I'll just read it just to make sure that I'm keeping up with stuff. Not so much that I feel like I'm not a person with integrity that follows the rules, but sometimes the rules do, there are certain things that you look at and you kind of go, oh yeah, I need to make sure that I'm following that kind of stuff. And it's important. And look, the AICPA, you violate the AICPA Professional Code of Conduct standards on tax services, you can lose your license. You can be sued. These are some very, very bad things that can happen. You violate the IRS's Circular 230, you could lose your license. You could be sued. And if it's egregious enough, CIS, Criminal Investigation Service, or actually Criminal Investigation Division, CID. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a different government organization. CID is going to pay you a visit. And, when CID pays a visit, that's usually when there's significant penalties, or you get to go off to a wonderful place where you get to make big rocks into little rocks, or license plates for a living. And so you don't want to be doing any of that. The State Board of Accountancy also has statutes. The State Boards of Accountancy regulate statutes passed by the state organizations because our licenses are state licenses. They're not federal licenses. So you have to follow the rules and regulations as outlined. Like in my case, I'm licensed in Virginia, DC, and Maryland. I have to follow all three of those in order to maintain my license and also to maintain my standards. Failure to comply Admonishment, suspension, or barred from practice. That's unless it's really super severe. And then, like I said, you'll be making big rocks into little rocks in a nice little place with 4 walls that you're not freely allowed to leave. Okay. Okay. For some reason, my button wasn't working. So again, civil penalties are the most common. I actually met one person who did have a civil penalty levied to them because they did something that they thought they were right. Turned out they weren't right. But it was because they weren't following the rules. And he said, mea culpa. Now I think he ended up getting fined like $1,000, and then he, moved on. And, but I met him at a conference. I didn't actually know him personally. But it was a monetary penalty. It's an expensive penalty. It's an expensive thing. And then also, if you think about it, having a penalty like that then opens you up to your state accountancy board to say, do we really need to get this guy to keep his license? And then there's a lot of investigations in that. And then you have to hire lawyers. It's a bad day. You don't want to be doing any of that. You want to find out to do the right thing to make sure that you do what's appropriate for you and for the good of your practice. And of course, good for the industry. Criminal penalties, they do say they're less common, but they're much higher and can include prison sentences. Again, big rocks into little rocks, 3 hots in a cot, but you don't have the freedom to leave. You don't have the freedom to live, and you got to live around with the fact that you are, especially if you're talking prison, it's probably a felony. You're a felon for the rest of your life, which basically means you don't do taxes anymore. You don't do CPA work anymore. You get out and you're going to be finding a new type of profession that's going to be a little less concerning about your criminal background. You don't want that to happen. A taxpayer practitioner will not be subject to an underpayment penalty if you have one of these: substantial authority or reasonable basis for the position. In both cases, if you do your tax research, like we talked about in the tax research video, you will be fine, generally. Now, like I said, if you do sloppy research, different story. But if you do good quality research and you keep good notes and when you actually have to do that research and you have to back this up, you'll be able to back it up and there won't be any problems. Again, if you have if you have a reasonable basis for the decision, obviously, if you have the IRS saying, hey, according to Rev Rule, blah, 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 you told me I could do this. They're going to come back and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we did. Generally, the IRS isn't going to come after you. You're not going to be in this much trouble if it's something that they've already accepted. Generally, where you're going to see this are court cases. So maybe there's a court case that applied in your situation in a way that the IRS wasn't thinking about, especially if it's a court case that's pretty old. You might have some court cases that were settled in the early 90s, though, that might apply to your client. And, you kind of go, hey, according to, blank v com meaning the commissioner, IRS got spanked for this. And as a result of which, I went ahead and used it because my facts fit the circumstances. They then have to make a decision. Do we want to relitigate this, or are they going to go, you know what? Yeah. Okay. We're there. We'll accept it. If you have a reasonable basis, and disclose. So in order to do number 2, you have to file a form that goes with the tax return that says, hey, IRS, I'm doing something that y'all don't necessarily say that we can do, but here's my basis for doing it. And then the IRS is going to make a determination as to whether they want to fight it or not. I mean, if it's a reasonable basis and the lawyers say, you know what, I think this is kind of the thing, the last thing the IRS wants is to go to court and lose. It's the worst thing for them because then they have to do stuff they may not want to do. And so if you have a reasonable basis and they think it's a reasonable position, they'll let you go ahead and do it. But generally speaking, you have to do these things. You have to be very careful and make sure that you're actually disclosing these things properly. All right, so that's all I got to say. I want to say thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next class.